continents where human habitation is known, all except Antarctica. The spiral is full of intentionality and ambiguity. If you think of its form, it is both galaxies and fingertips. It is both shells, pine cones, as well as flowers, all hold the shape of the spiral. Dr. Lauren Atras, author of Walking the Sacred Path, describes the labyrinth, which is built on the spiral shape, as mysterious because we don't know the origins of the design or how they provide a space that allows clarity. We only know that across time and space, they've been used again and again to seek clarity. While it is possible that this was something that spread from culture to culture, it looks more likely that the symbol of the labyrinth and the use of a spiral were designs that formed independently from one another. And I have a slide that shows some of these examples. The oldest possibly being in Sardinia, which is an island in the Mediterranean Sea, dating back to 2000 to 2500 BCE, before the Common Era. It's found on coins, it's found in North America, on the Aztec and other Native American drawings, as well as etchings into stone. Next slide, please. The formats are everything from permanent installations on floors of churches. That became very popular in medieval times when the pilgrimage to Jerusalem became too dangerous. And so the labyrinth was laid out in a church floor during the Crusades when travel was impossible. They are in gardens with rocks, in stones. Again and again and again, these symbols are uncovered across times and spaces. Next slide, please. Unlike a maze, they are unicursal. One does not have to decide where to go. You just have to decide to enter. And one will always arrive at the center. The design of the labyrinth is deeply symbolic. It's said to be built upon sacred geometry, much like the Enneagram. Next slide, please. The Enneagram is sometimes laid on top of the labyrinth and is a way of understanding the dominant characteristics found in 9 different kind of groupings that characterize human experience in the world. The Enneagram is its own kind of mystery, and I'm not going to focus on that today because I'm planning to offer a workshop on finding your Enneagram type and understanding the Enneagram deeper in February. So we don't know, we can end the slideshow. Thank you so much, Davey. We don't know how these forms originated or how they spread necessarily, but the practice of studying the Enneagram and the labyrinth and the spiral makes one thing clear. Since ancient times, and with the tenacity to last into modernity, people have understood that there is a connection between our inner selves and our outer experience. In the poem shared at today's chalice lighting, poet and artist Jan Richardson describes this outer inner journey in this way. You have looked through so many doors with longing, wondering if your life lay on the other side. For today, choose the door that opens to the inside. Travel the most ancient way of all, the path that leads to the center of your life. She concludes, you do not expect to return on the same road. Home is always by another way, and you will know it not by the light that waits for you, but by the star that blazes inside of you, telling you where you are is holy, and you are welcome here. As the new year is here, many have been thinking about New Year's resolutions. The root word of resolutions are re, and salvo. Re, to do again. Salvo, to loosen, to undo, as in to resolve a situation that is stuck. Redo, unstick. Year after year, we make resolutions. And I've been through this cycle, and I don't mean to be cynical, but I'll just say it hasn't quite worked for me. Some of those things just stay stuck. So I've stopped making resolutions, and instead, there's a different approach, living with intention. So what's the difference? A resolution or goal is something we push for, a future condition that currently doesn't exist. That's often what a resolution encompasses. And it's usually something that primarily benefits ourselves. It's something we want in the world. An intention is simply living into the self, living into one's gifts, living into one's guiding principles. It's the understanding that inner journey and that outer journey are not two separate things. It's a non-duality that we seek, that they may be one. And so resetting our intention is a practice of the new year. It has different names. Some people will call it living into our vocation. A vocation, often people think of a job, and we even introduce ourselves. I'm Stacy, I'm a minister, as if my title is really who I am. A vocation is a little bit deeper than that. It is finding the place where your deepest joy meets the world's greatest need, can be called a calling. Or to put it another way, where the divine in you meets the divine in me. When we touch into this, we may return from the journey of recentering into that intention on a different path than we started with. This is part of being in a life cycle. We can see this in monarch butterflies so clearly. They start as eggs, move into caterpillar stages, move into butterfly stages, but we don't always take the time to recognize that we are moving through different thresholds in our own lives, that we are literally transforming, and that the way our vocation may show up transforms with that. When we recenter, take a practice such as the new year to revisit that intention, relook at our vocation in the world, it is a time for us to acknowledge the thresholds we have moved across or are nearing in our lives, and to see the vocation and the way it plays out in the world with new eyes. Who we are is often most mysterious to ourselves. That's something I've found. And so spiritual practice is one of the things that is done to help bring that knowing. And one of those practices is walking the labyrinth or walking the spiral. And it's often done at the new year. And what's so interesting is that psychology and neuroscience have been studying some of these different spiritual practices, like the labyrinth, given their universal appeal and prospects. What do they do, and how do they do it? We've been seeing a resurgence in walking the labyrinth or a walking meditation, such as the spiral, in hospitals, in prisons, in communities, at colleges. When scientists have done research on this practice, trying to understand what is it that brings clarity, they found that people's blood pressure is lower after they walk in general, that often as we turn from outer to inner, we have a kind of clarity, again, that non-duality, that sort of coming together, that whole journey that we often don't take the time or have the time to explore. So there are tangible, measurable health impacts that are all positive. And one of the areas that they found it was most positive was when people are at one of those great thresholds of life, moving from one place that they're living to another, one job, retirement, becoming a parent, kids leaving the nest, whatever it is, whatever threshold. Sometimes those are big and sometimes those are little. It's maybe a resolve that we have to live in a certain way, and we are just beginning to live into that. So the spiral of greens are part of today's service. Yesterday, some hardy souls came together. We clipped greens and we tied them together. They have been lovingly constructed, really, really beautifully constructed. In fact, when we took them out today, they were still full and perfect because they were so carefully crafted for this purpose. The spiral of greens is a practice that is done typically on the winter solstice or the New Year's to reconnect to intention, to that true self, to that vocation. The term true self and is one that contemplatives in the Christian tradition have used. It was first found with the Desert Fathers and Mothers around 400 of the Common Era. Thomas Merton helped resurrect that, and Richard Rohr today continues, along with Cynthia Bourgeault and Thomas Keating, to write about and practice these. The terms false self and true self describe the encounter of finding our centers. The false self includes, I don't like that word very much, but it includes the adaptations we've made to survive in a world where we've been disappointed, where we've been hurt. So the ego's facade, the way in which we tell the story of the world keeps us safe and helps us to have resilience as we go forward. But it's only on the surface. To know one's true self is to touch into that vocation and to know that those unique gifts that are truly only our own are possibly part of what some people call the flame that's inside of us, or the true self. So there is a common image of the new year that I wanted to share with you all. And it's just an invitation for one of the ways that we can kind of bring this new year into the teaching of the inner self. And this is by Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She shares that there is a common image of an older man with a baby that is part of a New Year's emblem. And you've probably seen this in different ways. And the most common way it's interpreted is that, you know, the old are kind of like, that's the old year and they pass away, and the baby is like the next generation coming up. And so like kind of almost like the new replaces the old. Like that is like the interpretation that some think of when they see that image. And she said that is totally not where it comes from. Where it comes from is a sacred union. It's meant to show that the image of a wise person with the image of that potential for new life and creativity is actually a sacred union. And this is the opportunity. The new year is the time for us all to find that within ourselves. So the older man represents wisdom, represents all that is learned throughout life, all that grounds us. And the infant represents that joyous potential. Without the two of those, it is said that we will find disorder, that we need both of those together. They are the essence of creative power, and they can be made manifest through deliberate actions. So the young in years, I just experienced this visiting my nieces and nephews. They just have this amazing wisdom, you know, like in kindergarten, there's just wisdom pouring out of them. And it's sort of innate and it's uncanny that it's there. And yet I know from the elders that I know that there is a leaping of spirit, a joyousness that is within them that I also see in those kindergartners. So the new year is a time to consciously remember and reclaim these dual aspects of being that are within all of us. And to take that in order to allow the creative and the new, the wisdom and the potential and the joy to all come together as one. So after the service concludes today, You have the opportunity, should you choose, to walk the spiral of greens. It's located just outside on the parking lot. There's a clear ice-free path to get there. For those online, if if being together in a big group doesn't feel right, but you would like to walk the spiral, it will be up today until about 1 o'clock. And so you are welcome to come and enjoy that practice should you choose to. The physical form of the spiral also marks the seasons. As you begin, one practice that you may choose is to remember and revisit the path from autumn. And as you spiral inward towards the labyrinth, where the days grow shorter, you arrive at the center, which is the winter solstice. It is the season of the longest night. Here we pause before we spiral back through spring and towards the summer solstice, the day with the most sun. The journey each person takes through the spiral can also represent that inner journey to rekindle, to reconnect with one's own flame within. So one invitation is there are some beeswax candles located outside the spiral, and you can take that. And the practice that I often use for the inner journey is release, receive, return. So as you move through the beginning of the spiral with your unlit candle, release, let go. As the birch trees teach us in winter, we let go of the lower branches in order for new growth to occur. So what is it that we need to let go of for new growth? At the center, we pause and light our candle. We connect to our inner flame and listen for whatever comes non-judgmentally. And as we move out with the candle lit, we take what we've experienced so far, releasing, receiving, to set an intention or bring some clarity to a situation, or just allow for the mystery to be. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And at the end, we give thanks and blow out our candle and return it to the basket. So that is the invitation to walk the spiral after today's service. It's an invitation to participate in something that humans have been doing since ancient times, to reconnect, to rekindle, whether that's part of the practice of the seasons and spiraling and connecting with this time of year, or with your inner self. May this gift of winter help you enjoy peace and solitude. May you be reminded to pause this season. May you be granted awareness and gratitude fresh each day. And may the songs in your hearts be blessings and insights to one another. And may compassion always shine forth during these longest nights. Our next hymn